I'd spent 40 years designing guidance systems for military aircraft, calculating trajectories, and anticipating every possible failure point. Now, standing in my newly purchased forest cottage, I thought I'd finally escaped the need for contingency planning. The phone rang. My son-in-law Bradley's voice cut through the peaceful morning. "Great news, Matthew. My parents lost their apartment. They're moving in with you next week. Sarah thinks it's perfect since you have all that extra space now." I set down my coffee, watching a deer graze outside my window, and smiled. The morning after Bradley's call, I stood in my kitchen brewing a fresh pot of coffee, trying to process what had just happened. Through the window, morning mist clung to the pine trees surrounding my cottage. I'd purchased this place 6 months ago, a modest 3-bedroom home on 20 acres of pristine woodland, about 2 hours north of Burlington, Vermont. After 4 decades of working in windowless facilities, designing guidance systems for fighter jets, all I wanted was solitude and nature. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, my only child. "Dad, can I come by today? We need to talk." Sarah arrived around noon, her face drawn with worry. At 35, she still had the same nervous habit of twisting her wedding ring when something troubled her. We sat on the back deck, surrounded by the sounds of the forest. "Dad, I tried to stop him." She began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Bradley's been planning this for months. I found out 3 weeks ago, but when I confronted him..." She paused, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her tea. "What happened, sweetheart?" I kept my voice gentle, though alarm bells were ringing in my head. "He said if I warned you or tried to interfere, he'd file for divorce. He knows I can't afford a custody battle for Emma. My 8-year-old granddaughter was the light of Sarah's life. He's already told his parents they can have the master bedroom. He gave them a timeline of when you'd be convinced to move back to Burlington." I maintained my composure, years of military discipline keeping my expression neutral. "How long have Frank and Dorothy been without housing?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. "They haven't lost anything. They're tired of paying rent and decided your cottage would be perfect for their retirement. Bradley told them you're getting senile and won't put up much fight." "Interesting." I sipped my coffee thoughtfully. "Sarah, you mentioned finding out 3 weeks ago. How did you discover their plan?" She pulled out her laptop, hands still shaking. "I wasn't snooping, I swear. Bradley left his email open when he borrowed my computer." She turned the screen toward me. "Look at this exchange with his mother." The email thread made my blood run cold, though I kept my expression carefully neutral. Dorothy had written, "The old fool has more money than sense buying that place. Military pension Boeing contractor money, and he wastes it on trees and squirrels. Once we're in, Frank knows people who can help us have him declared incompetent. That cottage has to be worth at least $800,000. Bradley's response was equally calculating. "Mom, give it 3 months max. Sarah's already noticed he repeats stories sometimes. Normal aging stuff, but we can work with it. Get Dad to document everything once you're there. Every forgotten appointment, every repeated question." I scrolled through more messages, each one more damning than the last. Frank had chimed in with, "That cottage will solve all our problems. I can finally pay off some debts and there's enough land to subdivide for development." "Dad," Sarah's voice pulled me back. "You're being too quiet. Please don't do anything rash." I smiled at my daughter, the same reassuring smile I'd given her when she was 5, and afraid of thunderstorms. When have I ever done anything rash? I spent my career planning for every contingency. This is just another problem requiring a solution. But Bradley's serious about the divorce threat. And his parents, they're not nice people, Dad. Frank has some questionable friends from his business dealings. "Tell me about these business dealings." I kept my tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. Sarah glanced around nervously, even though we were alone on my property. "Frank used to run a construction company. It went bankrupt 5 years ago, but not before a lot of client money disappeared. He was never charged with anything, but there were rumors. And Dorothy, she was a nurse until the hospital discovered prescription irregularities. Again, no charges, but she can't work in healthcare anymore. I nodded slowly, filing away each piece of information. Sarah, I need you to do something for me, but it has to seem natural. Can you mention to Bradley that I've been having some confusion lately? Nothing dramatic, just little things. Maybe I called you by your mother's name once or twice. Dad, no, I won't help them build a case against you. I reached across the table and took her hand. Trust me, sweetheart. I've navigated missile defense systems through enemy territory. I can handle your in-laws. But I need you to play along for now. Can you do that? She squeezed my hand, tears forming in her eyes. I hate this. I hate that he's making me choose between my marriage and my father. You're not choosing anything. You're protecting Emma by maintaining stability at home while I handle this situation. Now I need one more thing. Do Frank and Dorothy have a key to my cottage? Sarah's face went pale. Bradley had copies made last month. He said it was in case of emergencies. Perfect. I stood up, my mind already working through possibilities. Tell Bradley you spoke with me, and I seemed confused but agreeable. Mention that I've been forgetting to lock doors and leaving valuable items in odd places. As Sarah prepared to leave, she hugged me tightly. Dad, what are you planning? I'm planning to enjoy my retirement in peace. Sometimes achieving peace requires strategic preparation. I kissed her forehead. Go home to Emma. Everything will be fine. After Sarah left, I made a phone call to an old friend from my Air Force days. James Thompson had transitioned from military intelligence to private investigation after retirement. Thompson Investigations, his gravelly voice answered. Jimmy, it's Matthew Brennan. I need a favor. Matthew, about time you called. What's the situation? I need security cameras installed immediately, the kind that are invisible to casual observation, and I need background checks on 2 individuals. Thompson chuckled. Still thinking 3 moves ahead, I see. Give me the details. As I provided Frank and Dorothy's information, I walked through my cottage, already envisioning where each camera would go. The master bedroom they coveted, the office where I kept my papers, the kitchen where conversations would flow freely with morning coffee. One more thing, Jimmy. I need you to check if there's been any unusual activity here at the cottage when I've been away. I take day trips to Burlington twice a week for errands. You thinking someone's been inside? Call it a hunch. I'll have a team there tomorrow morning. They'll look like a regular maintenance crew. And Matthew, whatever you're planning, be careful. Background checks on family members usually mean trouble. After ending the call, I stood in my living room gazing at the family photos on the mantel. Sarah's wedding picture showed her radiant in white, Bradley, looking handsome and sincere beside her. How quickly sincerity could transform into calculation. I opened my wall safe, hidden behind a painting of fighter jets I'd helped design. Inside lay documents worth protecting, property deeds, investment portfolios, military commendations. But more importantly, there was space for new documents, the kind that would soon tell a very different story. That evening I sat on my deck as the sun set through the trees, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. A great horned owl called from somewhere in the darkness. Nature had its own way of dealing with predators and prey, a balance maintained through patience and precision. My phone rang. Bradley again. Matthew. How are you this evening? Sarah mentioned she stopped by today. Bradley. I let a slight confusion creep into my voice. Sarah. Oh, yes. She came by. Lovely girl. Reminded me so much of her mother today. Her mother. But Matthew, Linda passed away 15 years ago. Did she... I paused, adding a touch of uncertainty. Yes, of course. I meant she reminded me of Linda. Sometimes the memories get jumbled. That's perfectly normal, Matthew. Hey, I wanted to confirm about my parents. They'll be arriving next Thursday. Mom's so excited to help you around the cottage. Parents. I let the word hang in the air. Oh, your parents. Yes. Sarah mentioned something. Thursday, you said. I suppose that's fine. I have plenty of room. Great. And Matthew don't worry about preparing anything. They're very self-sufficient. They'll probably take that big bedroom at the end of the hall if that's okay. Whatever makes them comfortable, I replied absently. Bradley, I should go. I was trying to remember where I put my reading glasses. They're probably on your head, Bradley suggested with a laugh that didn't reach his sincerity. Oh yes, here they are. Silly me. Good night, Bradley. I hung up and removed my reading glasses from the side table where they'd been all along. The game had begun, and Bradley had just made his first move. He thought he was playing chess with a confused old man. He had no idea he was playing against someone who'd spent 40 years anticipating enemy movements and planning countermeasures. The owl hooted again, closer this time. I smiled into the darkness. Nature was full of predators who mistook patience for weakness, stillness for vulnerability. They learned too late that some creatures survived not through aggression, but through intelligence and careful planning. Inside, I opened my laptop and began creating a spreadsheet. Asset Inventory, I titled it. But this wouldn't list my actual assets. This would be a carefully crafted fiction designed to be discovered by snooping in-laws. I included mentions of valuable coin collections hidden in the attic, rare stamps in the basement, and cash reserves in various hiding spots throughout the property. Each location would be monitored by Thompson's cameras. Each search would be documented. Every greedy moment would be preserved in high definition. As I worked, I thought about Sarah's tears about Emma, who deserved better than a father willing to destroy her family for money. Bradley and his parents had made a crucial error. They'd threatened not just me, but my daughter's happiness and my granddaughter's future. In military terms, they'd revealed their position while assuming their target was defenseless. It was a tactical error that would cost them everything. Thompson's team arrived at dawn 3 days later disguised as a home maintenance crew. While they installed state-of-the-art surveillance equipment, Thompson himself sat with me in the kitchen spreading documents across my oak table. Matthew, you're not going to like what I found. He began sliding a folder toward me. Frank Garrison owes money to some very dangerous people. We're talking $200,000 in gambling debts to the Torelli family. I studied the surveillance photos showing Frank meeting with known mob enforcers outside a warehouse in Boston. The Torellis don't forgive debts. No, they don't. But here's where it gets interesting. Thompson pulled out another document. 3 weeks ago, Frank told his creditors he'd have their money by Christmas. He specifically mentioned a property sale in Vermont. My property. Exactly. But that's not the worst part. Thompson's expression darkened as he handed me a bank statement. This is from Sarah's joint account with Bradley. See these withdrawals, $50,000 over the past year, all transferred to accounts controlled by Frank. I felt my jaw tighten as I reviewed the transactions. Each withdrawal was just under the amount that would trigger federal reporting requirements. Sarah doesn't know. Bradley handles their finances. He's been telling her they're saving for Emma's college fund. I set the papers down carefully, maintaining the calm that had served me through countless high-pressure situations. What about Dorothy? Running an online pharmacy scam. She's selling prescription medications using her old nursing credentials. The DEA has been building a case for 18 months. Thompson pulled out printed screenshots of websites. She's careful, but not careful enough. Everything routes through offshore accounts, but the packages ship from a storage unit in Manchester. Under whose name? Bradley's. He co-signed the rental agreement 6 months ago. I stood and walked to the window, watching a pair of cardinals at my bird feeder. The male fed the female sunflower seeds, a gesture of partnership and trust. How different from the relationship my daughter had unknowingly entered. Jimmy, I need you to document every financial connection between Bradley and his parents' criminal activities. Every signature, every transaction, every communication. Already on it. But Matthew, there's something else. Thompson pulled out a final document. This is a loan application filed last week. $250,000 using your cottage as collateral. Sarah's signature is on it. I examined the signature closely. After years of signing birthday cards and permission slips, I knew my daughter's handwriting intimately. It's forged, obviously, but it's a good forgery. They used a legitimate mortgage broker, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. The loan closes in 10 days. Let it close, I said, surprising Thompson. Matthew, if that loan closes... Trust me. Who holds the note? Patriot Financial Services. They're known for predatory lending and quick foreclosures. Perfect. I returned to the table, my mind calculating variables like I once calculated missile trajectories. I want you to find out everything about Patriot Financial. Board members, investors, business practices. Everything. Thompson grinned. You're planning something Byzantine, aren't you? I'm planning to give everyone exactly what they deserve. Now show me the security footage from the past few weeks. We moved to my office where Thompson had set up a monitoring station. Multiple screens showed different angles of my property. He pulled up archived footage from the previous Tuesday. There, he pointed to the screen. That's Frank's truck. I watched as Frank and Dorothy entered my cottage using the key Bradley had provided. They moved through my home like they owned it, opening drawers, examining electronics, even checking the labels in my clothes. Listen to this, Thompson adjusted the audio. Dorothy's voice came through clearly. Look at this, Frank, Waterford crystal. This decanter alone is worth $500. Forget the crystal, Frank responded. Check his office. Old military guys always keep cash. I watched them rifle through my desk, clearly frustrated when they found nothing of interest. Then Frank discovered something that made him smile. Look at this dot. Property assessment. This place is worth $900,000 and it's owned free and clear. No mortgage, no liens. Once we're living here, possession is 9/10 of the law, Dorothy replied. Bradley says squatters' rights kick in after 30 days in Vermont. We establish residency, have the old fool declared incompetent, and the property transfers to next of kin. Meaning Sarah. Meaning Bradley, Dorothy corrected. He's already got Sarah convinced her father's losing it. Give us 3 months and this place will be on the market. The timestamp showed they spent 3 hours in my home, cataloging possessions and taking photos. They even measured rooms, discussing which walls they'd remove for their renovation plans. They've been back 4 times, Thompson noted. Always when you're in Burlington for your Tuesday and Thursday errands. Predictable schedule makes me an easy target, I mused. Or so they think. Jimmy, I need you to set up something for me. I outlined my plan while Thompson took notes, occasionally shaking his head in admiration. You want me to hire actors? Discreet ones. I need them to play potential buyers, estate sale organizers, maybe a confused nursing home administrator. Small roles but convincing enough to be overheard. And you want fake documentation created for these valuable collections you don't actually own. Certificates of authenticity, appraisals, insurance documents. All discoverable if someone searches my office. I smiled at my old friend. Remember Operation Desert Mirage. How could I forget you created an entire fake airbase to distract enemy surveillance? Thompson laughed. But this time, instead of hiding military assets, you're creating financial ones that don't exist, while hiding my real assets in plain sight. I gestured to a simple filing cabinet in the corner. Everything important is in there, protected by something more powerful than any lock, which is misdirection. While they search for hidden treasures, they'll walk right past boring tax returns and investment statements. Thompson began packing up his equipment. What about the forged loan? I'll handle that personally. There's a reason I maintained connections in the financial sector after Boeing. I walked him to the door. How soon can you have the actors ready? Give me 48 hours. Matthew, are you sure about this? These people sound dangerous. So were surface-to-air missiles. But if you understand their guidance systems, you can make them miss their target entirely. After Thompson left, I made several phone calls. The first was to Robert Steinberg, a former Boeing colleague who now served on the board of several financial institutions. Bobby, it's Matthew Brennan. Matthew, how's retirement treating you? Interesting. I need information about Patriot Financial Services. There was a pause. Those sharks. What's your interest? Someone's taken out a loan in my name. I'd like to know who I'm dealing with. Ah, well, you're in luck. Patriot's in trouble. Federal investigation into their lending practices. They're looking to sell their loan portfolio to avoid prosecution. Interested buyers could get significant discounts. How significant? Pennies on the dollar if you know the right people. Do you know the right people, Bobby? I might. Send me the loan details. If someone's committing fraud using Patriot, they'll be eager to make it disappear quietly. My next call was to create movement in the game. I phoned Bradley. Bradley, I'm confused about something, I said, letting worry creep into my voice. What's wrong, Matthew? I can't find my coin collection. You know, the Morgan silver dollars, I was sure they were in the office closet, but did I move them? Coin collection. Bradley's interest was immediately piqued. How many coins are we talking about? Oh, dozens. Each worth, what did that appraiser say? 5,000, 8,000? I can't remember exactly. I know I put them somewhere safe, but these days… I trailed off with a frustrated sigh. Don't worry about it, Matthew. I'm sure they'll turn up. Hey, when Mom and Dad get there, they can help you look. That's kind of you. I've been misplacing valuable things lately. Just yesterday, I found my mother's jewelry in the kitchen pantry. Can you imagine diamonds in with the canned goods? Diamonds. Bradley's voice cracked slightly. Family heirlooms. I really should put them in a safety deposit box, but I keep forgetting which bank I use these days. After hanging up, I made one final call to Thompson. Change of timeline. Can you get me one actor by tomorrow? Someone who can play a confused but eager estate sale coordinator. That fast? What are you planning? Bradley just became very interested in non-existent coins and jewelry. I want to fan those flames. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I spent 40 years preventing disasters, Jimmy. It's refreshing to create one for a change. The next morning, I was having coffee on my deck when a car pulled up. The actor Thompson hired was perfect, a nervous, eager man in an ill-fitting suit who introduced himself as Harold Finch from Estate Treasures Limited. I made sure to look confused by his arrival. Estate sale. But I'm not selling anything. Oh dear. Harold fumbled with his papers, speaking just loudly enough for anyone listening to hear. I have here that you called about liquidating collections. Coin stamps, first edition books. I let uncertainty cloud my features. Maybe I did. I've been forgetting things. Come in, come in. As we toured the house, I knew Frank and Dorothy were listening through the devices they'd planted during their last visit. Thompson had found 3 Bugs amateur installations they'd probably ordered online. Mr. Brennan, your collections could be worth a fortune, Harold gushed. Morgan dollars in mint condition the stamp collection with the inverted Jenny. And did you mention something about Confederate currency? Did I? Yes, I suppose I must have. They're somewhere safe. I just can't recall exactly where. Maybe the attic. Or was it the basement? Harold left me with a business card and an estimate sheet showing potential values in the mid-6 figures. I made sure to leave it on the kitchen counter where it could be photographed during the next break-in. That evening, Sarah called, her voice tense. Dad, Bradley's been asking strange questions. He wants to know about coin collections and jewelry. He says you called him confused about missing items. I've been setting bait, sweetheart. How much does Bradley know about my actual finances? Nothing. You always handled that directly with me for tax purposes. Good. Keep it that way. Has he mentioned the cottage lately? Constantly. He's already told his parents which furniture they can throw out. Dad, it's getting harder to pretend I don't know what they're planning. Just a little longer. How's Emma? She misses her grandpa. Can we visit this weekend? Not this weekend. Frank and Dorothy arrive Thursday. Remember, I don't want Emma exposed to them. They're really coming to live with you. They think they are. Sarah, I need you to document everything Bradley says or does regarding my mental state. Times, dates, exact words. Can you do that? Like a journal. Exactly like a journal. Written contemporaneously, it becomes evidence. There was silence on the line before Sarah spoke again. Evidence for what? For ensuring Emma grows up in a stable, loving home. Trust me. After we hung up, I sat in my office looking at the wall of photos from my military career. Commendations unit photos, images of aircraft I'd helped protect. Each represented a problem solved, a threat neutralized. On my desk sat a photo from Sarah's wedding day. I'd walked her down the aisle trusting Bradley with my most precious accomplishment. Now that trust had been weaponized against both of us. I opened my laptop and began creating more digital breadcrumbs. Search histories for memory care facilities confused emails to wrong addresses, calendar appointments for things that didn't exist. Each piece of evidence would paint a picture of decline exactly what Bradley's family expected to find. But like the fake airbase in Desert Storm, this confusion was carefully orchestrated misdirection. Every symptom was documented in my personal files with timestamps and explanations. The real magic would come from the paper trail I was simultaneously creating through my shell company Brennan Defense Consulting. Through it, I was purchasing something special, the entire portfolio of predatory loans from Patriot Financial Services acquired at a steep discount through Bobby's connections. By the time Frank and Dorothy arrived, I'd owned the very loan they were counting on to steal my home. They'd spend weeks searching for treasures that didn't exist while the real trap closed around them. I poured myself a small glass of whiskey, a rare indulgence, and raised it to the empty room. To operational planning, I toasted, then added with a smile, and to surprises. Tuesday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth for Vermont in October. I was tending my small vegetable garden when Sarah's car pulled into the driveway. She emerged looking haggard, dark circles under her eyes, suggesting sleepless nights. "Dad, we need to talk." Her voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. I set down my gardening tools, noting the way she glanced around nervously, as if checking for observers. We went inside, and I poured her favorite tea chamomile with honey, a comfort drink from her childhood. "Bradley knows I'm here," she began. "He insisted I come." "Oh," I kept my tone neutral while studying her body language. "He wants me to evaluate your mental state. He gave me a list of questions to ask, signs to look for." She pulled out a folded paper from her purse hands, trembling. "He says if I don't cooperate, he'll file for emergency custody of Emma, claiming I'm enabling elder abuse by not addressing your decline." I took the paper, scanning Bradley's checklist. Does he repeat questions? Forget recent conversations. Show confusion about finances. Each item designed to build a case for incompetence. "Clever," I murmured. "Using you as his investigator maintains his distance while gathering evidence." "Dad, I'm scared." Tears rolled down Sarah's cheeks. "He's different now. Last night he grabbed my wrist when I questioned why his parents needed our master bedroom. Look." She rolled up her sleeve, revealing bruises in the distinctive pattern of fingertips. My military training kept my expression calm, but inside a cold fury began building. Threatening me was one thing. Laying hands on my daughter crossed an unforgivable line. "Has he done this before?" "Little things. Pushing past me, blocking doorways when we argue. But this is the first time he's left marks." She quickly rolled her sleeve down. He apologized after. Said the stress of his parents' situation made him snap. I moved around the table, pulling my daughter into a gentle embrace. She sobbed against my shoulder like she had as a child after skinning her knee. "Listen carefully," I whispered. "I need you to go along with Bradley's plan. Tell him I showed signs of confusion. But I also need you to do something that requires courage." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What?" "Document everything. Take pictures of those bruises. Record conversations if Vermont law allows it. Create a trail showing his escalating behavior." "Dad, I can't. If he finds out..." "He won't." I moved to my office, returning with a small device. "This is a pen recorder. It looks like a regular pen but captures 8 hours of audio. Keep it in your purse activated whenever you're alone with Bradley. Sarah stared at the device. You want me to spy on my husband? I want you to protect yourself and Emma. There's a difference between surveillance and self-defense. Her phone buzzed. Bradley texting, asking for updates. I watched her face change as she read fear replacing sadness. He wants me to check your medications, see if you're taking them properly. Then let's give him something to find. I led her to my bathroom, where I'd prepared a collection of pill bottles. Some were legitimate prescriptions, others were vitamin bottles relabeled with confused instructions. One bottle of heart medication had a note taped to it. Take 3 daily or 3 weekly, ask Sarah. Sarah photographed everything, her expression growing more disturbed. This feels wrong, Dad. You're not confused. This is all fake. Just like Bradley's concern for my well-being is fake. I guided her back to the kitchen. Now you mentioned you need to ask me questions from his list. For the next hour, we performed an elaborate theater piece. I answered Bradley's questions with carefully crafted confusion, occasionally calling Sarah by her mother's name, forgetting what year it was, showing frustration at misplaced items. Sarah played her part, though tears kept threatening to spill over. Ask me about my finances, I prompted when she hesitated. Dad, Bradley wants to know where you keep important documents. Documents. I let my face cloud with confusion. The important ones are somewhere safe. The bank. No, that's not right. I have a system, but lately, I trailed off, looking distressed. Your mother always handled these things better. Sarah made notes, each word seemingly pulled from her unwillingly. When her phone rang, Bradley's name appearing, I nodded encouragingly. Hi, honey, she answered, activating the pen recorder with her other hand. Yes, I'm still here. He's definitely showing signs. Confusion about medications, finances, even forgot what year it is. I couldn't hear Bradley's side, but watched Sarah's face as she listened. Tonight? But that's so soon. Yes, I understand, if you think it's necessary. She hung up, looking stricken. He's moving up his parents' arrival. They'll be here tonight instead of Thursday. Interesting. What prompted the urgency? He says Frank owes people money and they need to establish residency immediately. Dad, he sounded scared. He should be scared, but not of Frank's creditors. I pulled out my phone, texting Thompson about the schedule change. Sarah, I need to tell you something about Bradley's parents. I showed her Thompson's investigation results. The gambling debts, the prescription fraud, the criminal connections. As she absorbed each revelation, her expression shifted from shock to anger to a cold determination I recognized from her mother. They're criminals, she stated flatly, and Bradley brought them into our lives near our daughter. There's more. I showed her the forged loan documents. They're trying to steal the cottage using your name. She studied her forged signature, jaw tightening. I'll testify. Whatever you need, Dad. I'll help you stop them. No. I took her hands. You'll continue playing the confused daughter worried about her father but loyal to her husband. Let them think they're winning. While you do what I've always done, protect my family through strategic planning. I smiled gently. Your mother used to say I could turn any disadvantage into an opportunity. Time to prove her right. A sound from outside made us both freeze. A car door closing too early for visitors. I moved to the window, seeing Bradley's BMW in the driveway. He followed me, Sarah whispered, fear returning. Good, I said, surprising her. Remember, you're here because he sent you. You're gathering evidence of my decline. Play the part. Bradley entered without knocking, his face flushed with suspicion. At 38, he still had the good looks that had charmed my daughter, but stress had added hard lines around his mouth and eyes. Sarah, you've been here 2 hours. That's excessive. I'm being thorough like you asked. She showed him her notes. Dad's definitely struggling. Look what I found in his bathroom. Bradley studied the photos of medication bottles, satisfaction replacing suspicion. This is perfect. Judge Morrison will definitely approve a competency hearing with this evidence. He turned to me with false concern. Matthew, how are you feeling? Bradley. I beamed at him with vacant happiness. Sarah didn't tell me you were coming. How's your mother? Such a lovely woman. My mother, he exchanged glances with Sarah. She's fine. Actually, she and Dad are coming to visit tonight. Tonight. But the guest room isn't ready. Linda usually handles guests. Where is Linda? Dad? Sarah intervened gently. Mom passed away years ago, remember? I let confusion and grief flicker across my face. She did. But Yes, of course. I'm sorry. Sometimes the memories get mixed up. Bradley barely contained his glee. Don't worry about the guest room, Matthew. My parents will handle everything. They're very self-sufficient. Such nice people, I mumbled. Are they staying long? Just until they get back on their feet. Bradley lied smoothly. You won't even know they're here. After they left together, I watched from my window as they sat in Bradley's car, undoubtedly discussing my performance. Sarah had left the pen recorder in her purse, which she clutched tightly. Every word would be captured. I called Thompson immediately. Tonight. They've accelerated the timeline. I'll have surveillance in place. Matthew, what about protection? If Frank owes the Torellis? Already handled. Remember Captain Morrison from the 45th? Jake Morrison runs that private security firm now. His team will be nearby but invisible. I want Frank to feel safe enough to be himself. And the financial trap? Closes tomorrow. Patriot Financial Services just accepted my offer for their distressed loan portfolio. By morning, I'll hold the note on my own property. Thompson laughed. You're enjoying this too much. 40 years of preventing disasters, Jimmy. Nice to be on offense for once. I spent the afternoon preparing the cottage for invasion. The fake collection documents were placed strategically where curious criminals would find them. The security system Thompson installed was invisible, but comprehensive, covering every room with high-definition cameras and audio recording. In my bedroom, I packed a small bag. Not because I was leaving, but because I wanted Frank and Dorothy to think I might be convinced to leave. Visible confusion and preparation for departure would feed their confidence. As evening approached, I sat on my deck watching the sunset paint the sky crimson. The forest was peaceful, unaware of the storm about to break. A family of deer grazed at the tree line, and I wondered if they sensed predators approaching. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. They're packing now. Bradley made me help. Dad Dorothy was talking about renovations already. She has contractor estimates. I'm scared but playing along, recording everything. Stay strong, I replied. Tomorrow Emma will be safe. As darkness fell, headlights appeared on my long driveway. 3 sets, Bradley's, BMW, a rental truck, and an older sedan that had seen better days. The invasion had begun. I stood in my doorway, wearing a cardigan Sarah had given me for Christmas, and affecting a slight stoop I'd practiced. As they emerged from their vehicles, I painted confusion and welcome on my face in equal measure. Bradley, what a surprise, and you brought friends. Frank Garrison stepped forward first, a large man going soft around the middle, with the calculating eyes of a failed predator. Dorothy followed, bottle-blonde hair and sharp features that makeup couldn't soften. Both smiled like sharks scenting blood. Mr. Brennan. Frank boomed, grabbing my hand in a crushing shake meant to establish dominance. Bradley's told us so much about you. Thank you for opening your home. My home, I blinked owlishly. Oh yes, Bradley mentioned something. Come in. Linda will be so pleased to have guests. I caught the triumphant look that passed between them. The confused old man was exactly what they'd expected. What they didn't see were the cameras capturing every moment, or the security team Thompson had positioned in the woods, or the financial documents making their way through electronic systems that would soon make me their creditor. Let me show you to your room. I offered, leading them inside. It's so nice to have family visit. As they followed me through my home, already measuring it for their own purposes, I remembered Sun Tzu's wisdom. All warfare is based on deception. They thought they were conquering an old man's sanctuary. Instead, they were walking into a carefully prepared battlefield where every advantage was mine. The next 72 hours tested every ounce of discipline I'd developed over 40 years in aerospace defense. Frank and Dorothy Garrison invaded my home, like locusts systematically attempting to establish dominance, while I played the role of a declining, confused elder. Their first morning I woke at 5:30, as usual, maintaining my military schedule despite the charade. Through the camera feed Thompson had routed to my phone, I watched Frank already prowling my office, searching through drawers with practiced efficiency. I shuffled downstairs in my robe, affecting mild confusion at finding him there. "Frank, you're up early. Are you looking for something?" He jerked back from my desk, forcing a smile. "Just admiring your organization, Matthew. Military precision and all that." "Organization." I glanced around vaguely. "I suppose. Though lately I can't seem to find anything. Just yesterday I was looking for... I trailed off, letting frustration cross my features. "Don't worry about it," Frank soothed with false concern. "Dorothy and I are here to help now. Why don't I make us some coffee?" In my own kitchen, he took charge opening cabinets with proprietary confidence. I sat at the table noting how he'd already mentally rearranged the space. Through the window, Dorothy appeared on the deck, talking animatedly on her phone. "That's a big property you've got here?" Frank commented, setting down coffee with too much sugar, the way he'd seen me drink it during his surveillance. "Must be worth a fortune." "Is it?" I sipped the overly sweet brew without complaint. "The trees are nice. Linda loved the trees." "Linda's been gone 15 years, Matthew." His tone probed for weakness. I let my face crumble slightly. 15 years, but she was just... Yes, of course. Sometimes the mind plays tricks. Dorothy entered carrying a small Yorkshire Terrier that immediately began yapping. "Morning, Matthew. This is Princess. She's very well trained, you won't even notice her." The dog immediately jumped on my leather sofa with muddy paws. I watched Dorothy's eyes scan my living room cataloging possessions like an auctioneer. "What a lovely decanter collection," she noted, moving to the cabinet. "Waterford." "My mother's," I replied absently. Or was it Linda's mother? I should write these things down. By noon, they'd completely taken over. Frank commandeered my office, setting up what he called a temporary workspace, but looked suspiciously permanent. Dorothy rearranged my kitchen, throwing out perfectly good items because they didn't match her aesthetic. Princess had already marked territory in 3 rooms. "Where's that coin collection Bradley mentioned?" Dorothy asked casually over lunch. "We should make sure it's secure." "Coins." I perked up with false recognition. "Yes, the Morgan dollars. They're... I stood looking around with growing agitation. "I know I put them somewhere safe. Maybe the attic," Frank suggested quickly. "Or a safety deposit box." "No boxes," I said firmly, then looked confused by my own vehemence. "I don't trust banks. Everything important stays here." I spent the afternoon searching, with increasing frustration leading them on a chase through closets and storage areas. Each location had been pre-staged with tantalizing hints, empty coin holders, auction catalogs, insurance documents for collections I'd never owned. That evening, Bradley arrived with Sarah and Emma. My granddaughter ran to me immediately, and I had to resist the urge to appear too coherent in her presence. "Grandpa Daddy says we're having a big family sleepover. Are we?" I smiled down at her, noting Sarah's strained expression. "How wonderful. Do you want to see the deer? They come out at sunset." "Can we feed them?" "Emma, don't bother, Grandpa," Bradley intervened. "He needs rest." "Nonsense," Dorothy chirped with false warmth. "Children keep us young." though this place could use childproofing. So many dangerous areas for little ones. The threat was subtle but clear. I watched Sarah's jaw tighten as she processed the implication. During dinner, Frank dominated conversation with stories of his business ventures, each tale growing more grandiose. I nodded along, vacantly, occasionally asking him to repeat things, playing into their narrative of decline. Matthew was just telling us about his coin collection, Dorothy mentioned casually. Weren't you, Matthew? Was I? I looked puzzled. Oh yes, can't seem to locate them. Very frustrating. Bradley leaned forward eagerly. Maybe we should hire someone to help organize. A professional estate manager. That's premature, Sarah said quickly. Dad's just misplaced a few things. A few things? Frank laughed harshly. He can't remember his wife's been dead 15 years. No offense, Matthew. I saw Emma's face crumple at the harsh words about her grandmother she'd never met. Sarah pulled her close fury, flashing in her eyes, before she controlled it. After they left, I retreated to my bedroom, listening through the surveillance system as Frank and Dorothy discussed their progress. He's worse than Bradley said, Dorothy observed. This should be easier than expected. Did you see that insurance paperwork in the closet? There's at least $500,000 in collectibles somewhere in this house. Plus the property value. Frank, we could clear your debts and have enough left for that condo in Florida. First things first, we need him evaluated and declared incompetent. Bradley says Judge Morrison owes him a favor. What about the daughter? Bradley's handling her. She'll fall in line or lose her kid. Simple as that. Their casual cruelty made my hands clench. Through military discipline, I'd learned to channel anger into strategic planning. They'd revealed their timeline and strategy valuable intelligence for my counteroffensive. Day 2 brought escalation. I found Dorothy in my bedroom going through Linda's jewelry box I kept on the dresser. Oh, Matthew. She didn't even pretend embarrassment. I was just admiring Linda's things. You really should store these more securely. Linda's things. I moved closer, affecting distress. She needs those. Where is she? Dorothy's eyes lit with opportunity. She's out shopping. But you're right, these should be somewhere safe. How about I help you organize them? I watched her pocket a pair of diamond earrings while pretending to reorganize. The cameras captured every theft in high definition. Frank, meanwhile, had discovered my gun safe in the basement. Matthew, we should talk about these weapons. It's not safe for someone in your condition. My condition? I straightened with military bearing. I qualified expert marksman for 30 years. Of course, but that was then. Now with your memory issues. What memory issues? I demanded, then caught myself letting confusion creep back in. I'm sorry, what were we discussing? That afternoon, while I pretended to nap, they searched systematically. Through my phone, I watched them checking floorboards, examining the attic, even probing the garden for buried caches. Princess dug holes throughout my landscaping, her owners encouraging the destruction. The third night, their desperation showed. They'd found nothing but hints and empty containers. Frank's creditors were calling constantly. During dinner, he drank heavily, his friendly mask slipping. Damn it, Matthew, you must remember where you put those coins! Frank, Dorothy warned. No, we're running out of time. The old fool has to have them somewhere. Who's a fool? I asked mildly, then looked around, confused. Where's Linda? She's late for dinner. Frank slammed his glass down. She's dead. Your wife is dead. Can you get that through your head? The silence stretched taut. Even Dorothy looked uncomfortable with his outburst. I let my face crumple, tears forming. Dead. But we just celebrated our anniversary. Didn't we? Oh, Matthew. Dorothy cooed with false sympathy. You poor thing. Frank didn't mean to upset you. But Frank wasn't finished. This is pointless. We need to accelerate the plan. Not here, Dorothy hissed. Why not? He won't remember anyway. Frank turned to me. You're going to sign some papers tomorrow, Matthew. Power of attorney, for your own good. Papers. I nodded vaguely. Bradley handles papers. He's such a good boy. They exchanged satisfied looks. The confused old man would sign anything they put in front of him. What they didn't know was that Thompson had already prepared countermeasures. Any document I signed under duress would be invalidated by the contemporaneous medical evaluation, establishing my perfect mental capacity. That night, I lay in bed listening to them argue through the surveillance feed. He has to have hidden those collections somewhere, Frank insisted. The insurance documents were real. Maybe he sold them and forgot, Dorothy suggested. His mental state is clearly deteriorating. Or maybe Bradley exaggerated. Kid's not the sharpest tool. Sharp enough to marry money. Look, we stick to the plan. Get power of attorney, have him declared incompetent, take control of assets. The house alone will solve your problems. Our problems? Frank corrected coldly. Your pharmaceutical sideline isn't exactly legal either. I smiled in the darkness. Criminals turning on each other was as predictable as gravity. The pressure was fragmenting their alliance exactly as planned. My phone vibrated with a text from Thompson. Package delivered. Patriot Financial Services loan portfolio now in your name through Brennan Defense Consulting. You officially own your own mortgage. Also, Judge Morrison is actually Major General Morrison, retired. He's very interested in elderly abuse cases involving veterans. Another text from Sarah. Recording everything. Bradley getting violent. Emma staying with friend tomorrow. Ready to move when you give signal. Soon, I replied. Very soon. Through my window, I could see Frank's silhouette pacing the deck phone pressed to his ear, undoubtedly making promises to creditors he couldn't keep. Dorothy's shadow moved through the house, still searching for treasures that existed only in carefully planted documents. They thought they were closing in on a fortune. Instead, every crime, every threat, every stolen item was documented. The trap was set. Tomorrow, Bradley would arrive with his papers to sign, confident in victory. Sun Tzu wrote, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." Tomorrow the thunder would fall. Bradley arrived at 10 sharp the next morning, briefcase in hand, and triumph poorly concealed behind a mask of concern. With him came a small, nervous man in wire-rimmed glasses who introduced himself as Dr. Harold Pemberton. Matthew Bradley said with exaggerated gentleness, "Dr. Pemberton is here to help us make sure you're okay. Just a friendly chat." I stood in my doorway wearing the same cardigan from 3 days ago, with a coffee stain I'd carefully maintained. A doctor. But I feel fine. Is Linda sick? The look that passed between them spoke volumes. Dr. Pemberton pulled out a clipboard, already making notes. "Let's sit in the living room," Dorothy suggested, guiding me with a possessive hand on my elbow. "You'll be more comfortable there." Frank had rearranged the furniture to create what looked like an interrogation setup. Dr. Pemberton sat across from me while Bradley and his parents flanked him like eager prosecutors. Princess yapped incessantly from Dorothy's lap. "Mr. Brennan," Pemberton began in a patronizing tone. "Bradley's asked me to evaluate your cognitive function. Nothing to worry about. Can you tell me what year it is?" "Year..." I glanced around the room as if seeking clues. "It's 2024. Pemberton made a note. "Close, it's 25. How about the current president?" I named the previous president, then caught myself showing confusion. The evaluation continued for an hour, each question designed to highlight deficits Bradley had coached the doctor to expect. I provided exactly what they wanted: missed medications, forgotten appointments, confusion about deceased family members, and an inability to handle financial matters. Now Mr. Brennan Pemberton said eventually, "Bradley's concerned about your ability to manage your affairs. Do you understand what power of attorney means?" "Attorney." I perked up. "I have an attorney. No, Stephen. Samuel." "That's not important right now," Bradley interrupted. What matters is making sure someone can help you with decisions. Frank produced documents with a flourish. Just sign here, Matthew. We'll take care of everything. I noticed the papers weren't just power of attorney. Buried in the stack were property transfer documents, bank authorizations, and what looked like a pre-signed voluntary commitment form for a memory care facility. So many papers, I murmured, accepting the pen with a trembling hand. Bradley says I should sign. That's right, Bradley encouraged. Right there on the highlighted lines. I began signing with shaky letters, occasionally stopping to ask what I was signing, accepting their vague reassurances. Dorothy could barely contain her glee as each signature appeared. Excellent, Dr. Pemberton proclaimed when I finished. Mr. Brennan, I'll be recommending immediate intervention for your own safety. Safety. I looked alarmed. Is something wrong? Nothing to worry about, Bradley soothed. In fact, we found a lovely place where you can rest. Garden Acres Memory Care. They're expecting you tomorrow. Tomorrow. I stood unsteadily. But what about the cottage, the deer? We'll take excellent care of everything, Frank assured me with predatory satisfaction. You just focus on getting better. They left me in my chair, moving to the kitchen where champagne appeared from somewhere. Through the surveillance feed on my phone, hidden beneath my cardigan, I watched them celebrate. God, that was easier than expected? Bradley laughed. Did you see him just sign everything? Pemberton was perfect, Dorothy agreed. How much did he cost? $5,000, but worth every penny. His evaluation will stand up in court if Sarah tries anything. Speaking of Sarah, Frank said, you need to handle her. Can't have her interfering with the asset liquidation. Already done. I've got hotel surveillance footage that makes it look like she's having an affair. Amazing what digital editing can do. If she fights the commitment, I'll threaten to use it in custody proceedings. They clinked glasses while I sat in my living room, apparently staring vacantly into space. In reality, I was texting rapidly with Thompson. All documents signed and recorded. Pemberton took his bait perfectly. Morrison's ready. Real evaluation happened yesterday at the VA. Remember, you passed with flying colors. Security team standing by for tomorrow. I smiled slightly. Dr. Harold Pemberton was about to discover what happened when you participated in elder fraud against a veteran. The real Judge Morrison, Major General Morrison, had very specific feelings about civilians who preyed on military retirees. That afternoon, while my invaders continued celebrating, I wandered the property confused, but actually checking all surveillance equipment. The cameras had captured everything: Dorothy's thefts, Frank's threats, Bradley's forged documents, and Pemberton's coached evaluation. Matthew. Dorothy found me in the garden. You shouldn't wander off. It's not safe. I was looking for Linda, I said plaintively. She loves the garden. Of course she does. Dorothy's smile was sharp. Why don't you show me where you keep the gardening tools? Bradley mentioned you had some valuable antique implements. Even now, with victory seemingly assured, she couldn't stop hunting for assets. I led her to the shed, watching her photograph everything already, calculating values. That evening, Sarah arrived alone. Her face was pale but determined. Hi, Dad. Bradley said you had an evaluation today. Did I asked vaguely, then whispered when Dorothy left us alone. Emma's safe. With my friend Maria, she whispered back. Bradley doesn't know where. Good. Tomorrow everything changes. Dad, Bradley showed me footage. It's fake, but it looks real. He says he'll use it unless I cooperate. Let him think you're cooperating. Has Thompson contacted you? This afternoon. He has the real medical evaluation, the recording of Bradley admitting to forgery, everything. Her voice dropped even lower. He also said you own our mortgage now. Through a shell company. Bradley's about to learn what happens when you forge loan documents. Frank appeared in the doorway. Sarah, good. You can help your father pack. He's moving to Garden Acres tomorrow. Moving. Sarah played her part perfectly. But this is so sudden. Dr. Pemberton was very clear, Frank said firmly. Your father's a danger to himself. We found him trying to hide cash in the freezer earlier. I hadn't done any such thing, but contradicting him would break character. Instead, I looked confused. Did I? I don't remember. See, Frank's satisfaction was palpable. It's for the best. That night, I packed a small suitcase, playing the role of a man preparing for institutional care. Through the cameras, I watched Frank and Dorothy planning renovations, Bradley on the phone with contractors, all of them spending money they didn't have yet. At midnight, my phone buzzed. Morrison. Transportation arranged. 0900 hours. Be ready for fireworks. I lay in my bed in the home I'd bought for peace, now invaded by those who saw only dollar signs. They thought tomorrow would bring their final victory. The confused old man shipped away while they pillaged his life's work. Instead, tomorrow would bring revelation. Every forged document, every threat, every theft had been meticulously recorded. The cottage they coveted was already protected by legal structures they couldn't imagine. The confusion they'd exploited was as fake as their concern. One more dawn, one more performance. Then the thunderbolt would fall. I closed my eyes, hearing Princess bark at some nocturnal creature, Frank's snoring from the guest room. Dorothy's phone conversations with fellow criminals planning to fence my mother's jewelry. All of them secure in their false victory. All warfare is based on deception, Sun Tzu wrote. Tomorrow the deception would end, and reality would arrive with the force of 40 years of strategic planning. 9 o'clock arrived with military precision. I stood in my living room wearing my best suit, the confused elderly man costume discarded. Frank and Dorothy bustled around, eager to remove me from my own home. Bradley paced nervously, checking his phone repeatedly. "The van from Garden Acres should be here any minute," he announced. "Dad, you understand this is for your own good, right?" I didn't respond, instead, gazing out the window where 3 vehicles were approaching. Bradley smiled, assuming it was the memory care transport. His smile faltered when he recognized the lead car. "Why is Judge Morrison here?" The vehicles parked, and outstepped Major General Harold Morrison, retired, still carrying himself with military bearing. Behind him emerged 2 federal marshals, a DEA agent, and someone Bradley recognized with growing alarm, the real Dr. Pemberton from the Veterans Administration. "What the hell is this?" Frank demanded. I turned from the window, all confusion gone from my features. "This, Frank, is what we call in the military a coordinated strike." Morrison entered without knocking, his presence immediately commanding the room. "Bradley Garrison? Frank Garrison? Dorothy Garrison? I have warrants." "Warrants?" Dorothy clutched Princess tighter. "For what?" "Elder fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy theft, and in your case, Mrs. Garrison, federal drug trafficking." The DEA agent stepped forward. "We've been monitoring your online pharmacy operation for months." "This is insane!" Bradley protested. "Matthew's senile Dr. Pemberton confirmed it yesterday." "I confirmed no such thing," the real Dr. Pemberton stated coldly. "I evaluated Mr. Brennan 3 days ago at the VA hospital. His cognitive function is exceptional. However, someone claiming to be me apparently conducted a fraudulent evaluation here." Morrison smiled grimly. "Identity fraud. Add that to the charges." "You can't prove anything," Frank blustered, but sweat beaded on his forehead. I pulled out a small remote. "Actually, I can prove everything." The living room television came to life, showing crystal clear footage of Dorothy stealing jewelry. Every room, every conversation, every crime, all documented. The screen shifted to Frank threatening me, then to Bradley discussing forged documents, then to their champagne celebration over my supposed mental decline. "You recorded us," Dorothy shrieked. "In our own home." "My home," I corrected, "which you invaded under false pretenses. And yes, Vermont is a one-party consent state for recordings." Sarah knew. Bradley realized fury replacing shock. "That bitch set me up." "Careful," Morrison warned. "Threatening witnesses is another charge." Speaking of witnesses, I continued. Sarah's been documenting your escalating abuse, Bradley. Physical violence, financial theft, emotional manipulation. She has photos, recordings, and contemporaneous notes. Thompson entered carrying banker's boxes. These are Mr. Brennan's actual financial documents. As you can see, his assets are held in various trusts, all protected from the kind of theft you attempted. What about the loan? Bradley grabbed at straws. The mortgage on this place. Ah yes, the fraudulent loan using my forged signature. I smiled. Interesting thing about distressed debt portfolios. They can be purchased by anyone, including the supposed victim of the fraud. I now own that loan through my consulting company. You can't do that? Already done, which means you committed wire fraud against me personally, federal offense. Frank lunged toward me, but the marshals intervened. As they cuffed him, he snarled, "You planned this whole thing!" 40 years in defense systems, I replied calmly. I specialized in anticipating threats and neutralizing them. You three presented a threat to my family. This is neutralization. The coins, Dorothy wailed, as she too was cuffed. The collections. They were real. I saw the documents. Forgeries, Thompson explained. Rather good ones designed to be found by searching criminals. The real Mr. Brennan lives modestly and invests wisely. No hidden treasures, just solid financial planning. As they were let out, Bradley turned back, his face twisted with rage. Sarah won't get away with this. I'll destroy her in court. Morrison held up a tablet showing security footage. This is you physically grabbing your wife, leaving bruises. This is you threatening to take her child. This is you admitting to digital manipulation of evidence. Mr. Garrison, you'll be lucky to get supervised visitation. The house fell silent after they left. I stood in my living room surveying the damage. Furniture moved, belongings rifled through, the peace I'd sought shattered. But my home remained mine, my family was protected, and justice had been served. Sarah arrived an hour later with Emma. My granddaughter ran to me, and this time I could embrace her without pretense. Grandpa, Mommy says the mean people are gone. Yes, sweetheart, all gone. Sarah's eyes were red from crying, but relief showed in every line of her body. Dad, I'm so sorry. I brought them into your life. You brought Bradley into your life, I corrected gently. You couldn't have known what he'd become. Or maybe he was always this way, just better at hiding it. The lawyer says with your evidence, the divorce will be quick. Bradley won't contest it from federal prison. And the custody. Full custody to me. Emma's safe. She paused. How did you know? How did you plan all this? I settled into my chair, Emma climbing onto my lap. When I designed defense systems, we called it layered protection. Multiple fail-safes, redundant systems, always assuming the first line would be breached. Bradley thought he was attacking a soft target. Instead, he hit layer after layer of preparation. But pretending to be senile wasn't that hard. The hardest part was watching you suffer, knowing I could end at any time. But if I'd confronted them directly, it would have been my word against theirs. This way they convicted themselves. Emma had found one of her storybooks on the shelf. As I began reading to her, Sarah started cleaning up the mess Dorothy had left. The cottage began to feel like home again. That evening, as Sarah made dinner in the kitchen, Dorothy had tried to claim. She asked, "What happens now?" Now you rebuild your life without fear. Emma grows up safe, and I go back to enjoying my retirement. Will you be okay here alone, after everything? I looked out at the forest where deer were emerging for their evening feeding. The peace I'd sought had been tested but not broken. I'll be fine, but maybe I'll install a better gate on the driveway. Sarah laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in months. And maybe be more careful about who gets keys. Definitely that. As we ate dinner together, Emma chattering about her friend's new puppy, I felt the satisfaction of a mission completed. The threats had been neutralized, the family protected, the home secured. Bradley would serve time for his crimes. Frank's gambling debts would follow him to federal prison. Dorothy's pharmaceutical empire had crumbled. Dr. Pemberton, the fake one, faced charges for impersonating a medical professional. But more importantly, Sarah was free. Emma was safe. The cottage stood intact. Not bad for a confused old man. The first snow of winter fell 6 weeks after the arrests blanketing my forest cottage in pristine white. I stood on my deck with a cup of coffee watching deer leave delicate tracks through the fresh powder. The morning silence was profound, broken only by the distant call of a cardinal. My phone rang. Thompson's name appearing. "Morning, Jimmy. What's the word?" Bradley took the plea deal. 7 years federal, no parole for the first 5. Frank got 12 for the wire fraud and conspiracy. Dorothy's looking at 15 for the drug trafficking. And the fake doctor. Pemberton, real name Gerald Watson, pled guilty to impersonation and conspiracy. 3 years plus, he's lost any chance of ever working in healthcare again. I sipped my coffee, feeling no triumph, only resolution. What about restitution? That's the beautiful part. The assets they tried to steal from you, courts ordering them to pay damages equal to what they attempted to take. Won't see a penny of it from prison, but it's on record. After hanging up, I heard a car approaching. Sarah's SUV navigated the snow-covered driveway carefully. Emma burst out wearing a purple snowsuit and already gathering snowballs. "Grandpa, can we build a snowman?" After breakfast, Sarah called carrying grocery bags. "Dad, I brought supplies. Thought we'd do an early Thanksgiving." In my kitchen, Sarah moved with confident efficiency, reclaiming the space Dorothy had tried to possess. The months since the arrests had transformed her. The fearful, subdued woman was gone, replaced by someone who stood taller, smiled easier, and laughed with genuine joy. The divorce was finalized yesterday, she mentioned casually while chopping vegetables. And clean break. Bradley gets nothing. The forged loan documents and financial fraud meant he forfeited any claim to marital assets. She paused. "I'm keeping the house for Emma's stability, but I'm thinking of selling eventually. Too many memories. You could build something here," I suggested carefully. 20 acres is more than enough for 2 homes. Sarah's hand stilled. "Dad, you bought this place for solitude." "I bought it for peace. Turns out peace doesn't require isolation." I gestured towards the window where Emma was making snow angels. "Besides, someone needs to teach that little girl how to identify deer tracks and bird calls." "We'll think about it," Sarah said, but her smile suggested the thinking was mostly done. By noon, my cottage smelled of roasting turkey and fresh bread. Emma had convinced me to help with the snowman, which stood guard beside the driveway, wearing one of my old Air Force caps. We were setting the table when another car arrived. Morrison emerged, still maintaining his military bearing despite civilian clothes. Behind him came Robert Steinberg, my financial advisor who'd helped acquire the predatory loan portfolio. "Gentlemen," I greeted them. "You're just in time." "Wouldn't miss it," Morrison said, producing a bottle of wine. "Figured you could use some company for your first peaceful holiday." As we gathered around the table, Sarah raised her glass. "To new beginnings." "To justice served," Morrison added. "To family protected," I continued. "To Grandpa," Emma chimed in, raising her juice box. The meal was everything Thanksgiving should be: warm, filled with laughter, and free from fear. Morrison regaled us with stories from his JAG days, carefully edited for young ears. Steinberg explained how the seized criminal assets would fund a new Veterans Assistance Program. Emma announced she wanted to be a detective when she grew up, like Grandpa, but with more computers. As afternoon faded to evening, our guests departed with promises to return for Christmas. Sarah and Emma stayed to help clean up the 3 of us, working in comfortable synchronization. "Dad," Sarah said suddenly, "I need to thank you. Not just for exposing Bradley, but for showing me what real strength looks like. You could have confronted them directly, used force or anger. Instead, you used intelligence and patience." "Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent," I quoted. Asimov wrote that. In 40 years of military service, the most effective strategies were never about firepower. They were about understanding the enemy and letting them defeat themselves. Emma had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from snow play. As Sarah covered her with a blanket, she asked, "Do you think they understand now what they lost?" "Frank lost his freedom trying to steal what I'd freely shared if he'd simply asked. Dorothy lost her liberty pursuing crimes instead of using her medical knowledge legitimately. Bradley." I paused, considering. Bradley lost a loving wife and wonderful daughter because he valued money over family. He sent a letter, Sarah admitted, from prison, full of apologies and promises to change. "And I burned it." Her voice was steady. "Some bridges once burned don't deserve rebuilding." Later, after they'd gone home, I sat alone in my living room. The cottage felt different now, not empty, but expectant. The furniture was back where it belonged. My mother's jewelry, recovered from evidence, gleamed in its proper box. The fake collection documents had been framed as a reminder that sometimes the best treasures are the ones that don't exist. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Opening it, I found a message from a fellow veteran. "Heard about your situation through Morrison. My son-in-law's been pressuring me about moving to a home. Mind if I call?" I smiled, typing back, "Happy to help. First lesson document everything." The cottage had become more than my retirement sanctuary. It was now a symbol that elders weren't easy targets, that families could be protected, that justice could prevail through intelligence rather than force. 3 years have passed since that Thanksgiving. Sarah and Emma did build a home on the property, close enough for daily visits, but far enough for privacy. Emma's learned to identify 37 bird species and can track deer through the forest better than hunters twice her age. Bradley serves his time quietly. One letter reached me through official channels requesting forgiveness. I wrote back once, "Forgiveness is earned through genuine change, not words. Show your daughter who you could have been when you're free." Frank died in prison, his gambling debts finally catching up when protection wasn't available. Dorothy serves her sentence in minimum security, teaching literacy to other inmates. Perhaps she's found a legitimate use for her intelligence at last. My cottage stands unchanged, a testament to patience and planning. Veterans facing similar situations sometimes visit seeking advice on protecting themselves from predatory families. I've helped expose 3 elder fraud schemes, each time using the same principle: let the criminals convict themselves through their own greed. But mostly I enjoy my peace. Mornings with coffee and deer, afternoons teaching Emma about the stars I once used for navigation, evenings on the deck listening to owls and remembering Linda, who would have loved seeing our daughter strong and free. The forest has accepted us 3 generations, finding sanctuary among the trees. Sometimes Emma asks about the mean people who tried to take our home. I tell her the truth. They confused kindness for weakness, age for inability, and love for something that could be stolen. They learned too late that some things can't be taken, only given. And some men, no matter how they age, never forget how to defend what matters most. As I finish writing this account, snow begins falling again, the first storm of another winter. Emma will want to build more snowmen tomorrow. Sarah's planning a spring garden. The cottage stands ready for whatever comes, a fortress disguised as a home. To those facing similar battles, document everything, trust in truth, and remember that the best defense isn't walls or weapons. It's the patient application of intelligence, the strength of family bonds, and the knowledge that justice, though sometimes slow, runs deeper than any momentary greed. To those who would prey on the elderly, consider this fair warning. We may move slower, repeat ourselves occasionally, and prefer quiet lives. But we survived decades of challenges you can't imagine, learned lessons you've yet to face, and built networks you'll never see coming. Some of us spent careers anticipating threats and neutralizing them. Retirement didn't change that, it just gave us more time to plan. Now I need to close this account. Emma's staying over tonight, and she's requested the story about the time her grandmother and I got lost in the Rockies with only a compass and determination. It's a good story full of love and adventure, the kind worth preserving and passing down. Unlike the fortune Frank and Dorothy sought in my cottage, these stories are my real treasures. They can't be stolen, only shared. And sharing them with my granddaughter on a snowy evening safe in the home that greed couldn't take, that's a victory worth more than any collection. The deer are returning to the feeding station, brown shadows against white snow. The cardinal calls from his perch. Peace reigns in the forest cottage, hard won but unshakable. This is Matthew Brennan signing off. May your homes be secure, your families protected, and your retirement everything you've earned. Thank you for following this journey of betrayal, strategic planning, and ultimate justice. If you've faced similar situations with family members who saw your kindness as weakness or your age as vulnerability, I'd love to hear how you protected yourself. What strategies worked? What warnings would you give others? Please consider subscribing if these stories of elders standing strong resonate with you. Like this video if you believe that retirement should mean peace, not predation. Share it with anyone who might need to know they're not alone in facing family fraud. And comment below with your own experiences. Your wisdom could help someone else avoid these traps. Remember, age brings experience, not helplessness. Gray hair doesn't mean easy target. And sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic. It's the quiet application of a lifetime's wisdom. Until next time, stay strong, stay smart, and never let anyone mistake your kindness for weakness.